Welcome everyone to the first Fireside chat session. I'm Stuart Hean, one of the incoming directors of investments with the Collective Investment Group. If you're looking for more information on that group, feel free to join us at 4:30 this afternoon, where I'll be speaking with Karen, Steve Sanders, and Randall Drain Jr. But now the purpose of our meeting today is to connect with Leslie Smallwood, who of Mosaic Development. I wish we had a trumpet or a fanfare or a bugle button of some kind to announce Leslie's entering the room. But if folks aren't familiar with Mosaic, go ahead and give them a quick Google search. This is a full service real estate development firm, in-house property management, brokerage, real estate development, and consulting. As Leslie, I think, is going to get into with us shortly, started out in the neighborhoods and has now graduated to some really amazing projects that we're excited to, be in close proximity to, both being here in Philadelphia and being connected to the work of the collective. So without further ado, Leslie, I'm going to turn it over to you if you wouldn't mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about Mosaic and what you all are up to in Philly.
That's great. Thank you so much, Stuart. And it is absolutely an honor to be a part of this event today, and such an important topic of discussion of how we support Black and Brown developers in our efforts to really invest and improve neighborhoods. Especially, we're focused in Philadelphia today, but this is a nationwide situation that we all should be very mindful of. We started our company in 2008 in July, and I'm sure everyone is very familiar of the recession that hit in October, November. So that was a very challenging time to start a company. But by that, it really showed our resilience, our creativity, our ability to think lean. And I think that ultimately it was a great time to start the business, because we have a certain mindset to get through that. And it has really permeated throughout the company over our last 12 years of operation. We felt that it was imperative that we came, and both my partner and I met at a majority firm, and that's where really we cut our teeth. But it was really important to us for a number of reasons to start our own business. One, we really did want to focus on neighborhood development, which these were areas where people were pretty forgotten, and developers just really didn't focus on these areas. Secondly, it was really to be kind of a leader for Black and Brown developers to know what's possible and what's achievable. And we started with really nothing. And I think people understand that's one of the problems why Black and Brown developers have such a challenging time, because we're not capitalized. I think Lorraine said it very well in the Inquirer article today, that we don't have a rich uncle. We don't have those family and friends and relationships where typically other developers will be able to start with funds beside them. But that is a deficit for Black and Brown developers. So we really started the company on a wing and a prayer. We put our 401ks in and just got to work. And we forged partnerships with established developers. We forged relationships with PIDC and the Reinvestment Fund and CDCs to really start to get the company going. It's been a very organic growth for our company. It's been slow and steady and methodical, but it has been quite a journey, because there's a lot of obstacles in development if you're not capitalized. That makes this journey much harder, much longer, and it calls, at least for us, to become very astute and very knowledgeable in different funding sources, to be able to really reduce the private equity that we needed to secure for our projects. So we were very much reliant on new market tax credits. We've been very effective in incorporating that financing mechanism to really make the capital stacks work in our projects. I believe we're on our 5th new market tax credit project now. We've incorporated historic tax credits. We've incorporated low-income state loan programs, grant programs. I mean, we have really worked very hard to come up with creative ways to create the capital stack and provide our investors with a return, a sufficient and sometimes a very high return. Stuart, I don't hear back. Am I good? Can people still hear me? I just wanted to make sure.
I think you are. I'm going to try and exit the room here and come back in. I know we've been having some technical difficulties.
Yeah, I was hearing a little bit of feedback, so I just want to make sure. So,
all right, just give me a second here.
So I should keep talking, Stuart, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Please go for it.
I'm going to keep going. So, yeah, we've really been able to really benefit by a lot of these programs, financing programs that are out there to aid in these types of projects. The other thing that we have learned along our way, and I'm sure other Black and brown developers that are working in the neighborhoods have found this as well, it's hard to secure the construction lending that you need also because we're in these emerging neighborhoods where there's no comparables, there's no track record, there's no history of any development in recent years. So when you have the appraisals performed and feasibility studies, they always come back ultra conservatively. And with that, it really lowers your options and opportunities to get lending on these projects. So we're always very constrained. We're always very restricted into as to how much money can be infused into the projects. So it calls for us to be just very thoughtful in how we do this. We've also tried to incorporate other construction methods to make the projects work and economically, and to make sure that they are viable. We are really strong supporters of modular construction. We have used that through and in a number of our projects very effectively and very efficiently, especially in a city, and I'm hoping I'm not offending anyone, that is so union-based. It really does cause a tremendous challenge, though, for projects that you are doing in the neighborhoods, because keep in mind, the cost of construction across the city remains the same, but the rents that you're going to be getting on an ongoing basis when the project is in operation, they don't compete and they don't compare with Center City and other established neighborhoods. So there's always this gap that needs to be filled somehow, some way, for these projects to actually go forward. So having to always fill that gap also causes the projects to take longer, because a lot of the programs that we rely on to do that are cyclical. They have very definitive timeframes for applications and for issuance of the dollars or the credits, and they don't always run on the same cycle that your project is working with and working under. So there's a lot of things that need to be taken into account when you're doing neighborhood development. So to be able to have a fund that could be created that has a reasonable rate of return for the investors that we could utilize and infuse into our projects could be a tremendous help and boon for more projects to happen and to occur in these neighborhoods.
Leslie,
sure.
At the risk of putting some feedback in here, I'm going to stop you there and ask a quick question.
Sure.
Related to kind of your startup story with Mosaic. You mentioned the sort of difficulty with attracting capital and attracting financing, given the lack of comparables and ability to get sort of generous appraisals from in the marketplace. And I just wonder if you could speak a little bit to kind of the sort of innovativeness and creativity that you've had to use, especially early on, as you've been breaking into real estate development in the last 10, 15 years or so?
Sure. Well, you can't get but so creative with the appraisals, because they are, performed and conducted by independent third parties, of course, right? So when they come in conservatively, there's not much you can do but try to come up with just very creative ways of keeping your construction costs down and keeping the loan as small as possible, because typically the appraisal is impacting the loan to value analysis of the project. So the only way to really fix that issue is filling that gap with other kinds of dollars. And that's through tax credit programs, grants, subordinate loans, which PIDC plays a really critical role in a lot of these projects, because they will sit in a subordinate position, allowing that loan to value to be expanded a bit, where the senior lender is still comfortable that they may be at, say, 60 to 65% loan to value, but PIDC will come in and sit in and really be able to bring that loan to value to, say, 85%. So now when you're able to incorporate those kinds of things into the capital stack, it starts to now make sense. But again, doing all of that takes a lot of time, a lot of ingenuity, a lot of staying power, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of developers that typically what you're looking to do is something that is the highest and best use, that's going to make you the most profit in the least amount of time. That's your typical equation for real estate development. That is not the equation in any neighborhood project that we've worked on, my fellow Black and brown developers have worked on. That's not the equation.
Do you think if capital sources had been different at the outset of some of your projects and some of the work that you've done in different neighborhoods, that the actual life cycle and sort of process of those projects would have been different?
Oh, most definitely. We've had a lot of conversations, and when I say we, the collective, us as individual developers have shared, with the city and other local stakeholders, that if we had certain things in place, it would really allow us, one, for our projects to move faster, but also for us to do multiple projects in tandem. When you are capitalized or capital starved, it is almost impossible to do multiple projects at one time, because as most of you may be aware, development is so capital intensive upfront, with architects and legal and engineers and deposits on land. If we had access to affordable pre-development capital that we could deploy across multiple projects, that would most definitely assist us in doing more and doing it in less time. That's one of the largest things that I could see if there was some program put into place to provide that assistance, that would make a significant impact, not just to us as developers, but the projects that you could see happening, in our neighborhoods in Philadelphia. The other challenge that we run into as well is just the balance sheets. The lenders are looking for strong balance sheets to support their underwriting of these loans. And keep in mind that we aren't, for the most part, legacy companies. Most of our counterparts are legacy companies. They have these companies have been handed down from generations of the business being, in place, and we have never had that luxury. So we haven't had the time to create the balance sheets, right, to support us in our efforts. And then on top of that, we have, as I shared, use new market tax credits significantly, and you have to stand still for 7 years with a new market tax credit transaction, which is fine because it infuses a lot of equity into the project, which is a huge help, but it doesn't afford us the opportunity to have a capital event before 7 years. So most developers will refinance after 3 years, 4 years. They will either sell, which allows them to infuse capital back into their company so that they can apply that to the next project. So not only are we undercapitalized when we start our companies or as we progress, if you're using some of these mechanisms, you're also not able to have a capital event to put that money back into the company. So you can imagine just how challenging this whole dynamic is for most of Black and brown developers.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, to talk about generational wealth, staying power, longevity, the way that assets, companies are handed down over generations. And then when we think about how important a balance sheet is to be able to attract capital to do meaningful projects, while we're also looking at this simultaneous push towards wanting to have more socially impactful real estate development projects, we take a more trauma-informed, human-centered informed approach to development in our cities, and our social impact developers are undercapitalized. It sort of raises some questions about what are we doing and how are we doing it to support groups that are doing work in this space. Mm-hmm. So I want to encourage folks to go over to Mosaic's website and navigate through some of their projects. Golaski Labs is an amazing one. The Sharswood Bloomberg project, a few ground up residential construction projects, and then a shopping center in North Philadelphia as well. But wanted to make sure that we turn also to the direction that Mosaic is taking with a bit more wind at its sails. Leslie, you partnered up with Ensemble Development in the past year and won the bid to do the master development at the Navy Yard. And so just wanted to kind of acknowledge where Mosaic is coming from and where Mosaic is going. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about your ambitions for the Navy Yard and what you see in terms of potential there.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Stuart. And I know as we kind of prepared for this, you and I chatted a little bit about what that's going to entail over the next 15 years. But I will say this, obviously my partner and I are thrilled that we are partnering with Ensemble, or partnered with Ensemble for this next phase of our company. But the neighborhoods is where our heart will always remain. I just want to make sure that that's a very clear message. Our offices are in Strawberry Mansion. We'll be opening a second office in Wayne Junction. We recently just were awarded development consulting with Zion Baptist Church. We were just awarded the Tiny Home Village in West Philadelphia. So alongside the Navy Yard, we are still very vested in neighborhood development. But what's very exciting about the Navy Yard is that in its own way, it's not very different as to what we've been doing in the neighborhoods. This will be the first time in the Navy Yard's history that non-civilian residents will be able to live at the Navy Yard. The deed restriction was just recently lifted. So again, we're working with a situation where it's something that doesn't exist, right? And that's kind of how we've approached our development in the neighborhoods. They've been decimated, they've been disenfranchised and marginalized for years, right? So you're almost creating this new essence within these neighborhoods. So my partner and I are looking at it the same way at the Navy Yard, that it is important, that it is inclusive, that it is inviting, that it is a place where everyone feels that they should be able to belong and be there. And I know that that is one of the most important parts of why Greg and I feel that it's so important that we are a part of this partnership. And fortunately, because we've been drilling this home, Ensemble is on board. They are all over it with us to make this a model, really nationwide, as to how development should be done and should be done correctly. Unfortunately, PIDC and paid as the true steward for the Navy Yard is so excited about our vision and how we are already starting to execute on the vision. Only recently we did select a master planner for the 109 acres that we will be developing over the next 15 years. And I'm so excited to say that we exceeded our 50% goal of MBE and WBE participation. It starts at the beginning. And, for all of those people that say, oh, we made our best efforts, we tried, but we couldn't fulfill it. No, you didn't try hard enough. You didn't try, and you didn't demand it up front. You didn't require it up front. And I might be offending some, but this is a true example of how if the developers are demanding it and requiring it, folks will figure it out. And fortunately, I know that there was a lot of success also at the live casino, that they were very, very successful too, because they created a mandate for certain goals to be achieved. So not only are we looking to have success on our professional services side as we bring in our architects and engineers. Obviously, this will flow through construction as well, and we're having just a lot of conversations as to how do we lift up and boost smaller Black and brown and women-owned contractors, so that with a 15-year runway, we should be creating an opportunity to not just be a subcontractor, but to be a prime contractor. That's how you define success in a project of this magnitude. And these are the kind of metrics that we will be maintaining and managing and being able to distribute, so people will be able to say, yeah, we didn't just employ and bring on these subcontractors, we created strength and built strength for these companies. And we're also focused on the end users, the tenants that are going to occupy the spaces once we start to build out, not just the residential tenants, and that's a primary part too, that we will have affordability as a part of this, but also the commercial tenants. It's very, very important that Black and brown small businesses have the opportunity to sell their fare and their wares down at the Navy Yard and be a part of something that's going to be just so special, right? And the problem with that is, again, capital. Oftentimes they do not have the capital to come into a space like that. So we are creating an opportunity that we're building into our model, economic model, to provide ramp up period for rents, tenant fit outs for small businesses. And you have to think about this stuff up front to really make sure it becomes a reality. So this is just such an important opportunity that we have to make sure that there is nothing but success here. And one other thing I want to specify, some of you may be aware that Mosaic has used a crowdfund campaign on a couple of their projects so far, at Galaski and Sharswood, on a much smaller scale. But what we plan to do at the Navy Yard is we hope will just be honestly epic. We want to make sure that this crowdfund campaign goes citywide, so that anyone who wants to invest in the Navy Yard for $500 will be able to do that. Now, to me, that's true inclusion. The one thing I have to say is that for real estate investment, and for those investors that are on this call, they know historically real estate and investment has been limited to the top 2-3% in this country. You have to be an accredited investor. You have to, have net worth of $2 million or a salary of 200,000. And you can imagine how many people that excludes from this, being able to invest. So, when we did the research and recognized that the Jobs Act in 2009 was passed, and now we have opened up the doors for non-accredited investors to invest in real estate, it changes the paradigm. And we want to be in front of it. We want to be masterful in it. And we want to make sure that the Navy Yard is that beacon of how this can be utilized to allow low, moderate, regular working folks to be a part of something bigger than them and be a part of a project that they will now, when they come, they say, I own a piece of this. So not only is it exciting for the investor, they actually start to become ambassadors for what's to come at the Navy Yard. They now will come and feel as if they should be there and be a part of everything that's going to be going forward down at the Navy Yard in the future.
Absolutely. So I love that we started talking about a project and went straight into impact without even explicitly saying, well, separately, I know this is a great financially, this is a great opportunity, but separately, what is the impact potential? And the themes that I've heard you touch on in the last few minutes have really been centering around inclusion. So who are our contractors? Who are our architects? Who are our investors? Who are our tenants? Who is benefiting from and participating in this opportunity? Right. And I think that that's a really, really admirable and commendable approach to be bringing to real estate development and to economic development in general, where for so long I think we've thought about philanthropy and concessionary capital as if something that you need to essentially give money away to have an impact. But in this case, right, you're seeing a preeminent development project in one of the most established development districts in the city that has a strong financial underpinning and an incredible impact story, which I think is amazing. But I do want to pivot more explicitly to impact in the last few minutes that we have here. You've touched on inclusion. You've touched on some metrics that you all are using to consider impact, but I wonder if there are other things that you haven't had a chance to describe yet that would be you would consider as connected to your impact vision.
Yeah, as I know, people may not think of the the environmental aspects also as being impactful, but I think that's an important component also. We're also finding a lot about just wellness, and I think COVID has brought a lot of this attention front and forward as to how Black and Brown communities have been ravaged greater because of this, just because of comorbidities and all kinds of other health issues. So, as a part of the initiative down at the Navy Yard, we're examining that. We're looking at, the wellness of how these buildings need to be constructed and really add that component into it. Every building down here will be LEED Silver constructed as well. So we think as a team that that's an important part of impact also that should be considered and factored into not only the development in the Navy Yard, but future development across the city. So that I think that's one other area that we should always be looking at for social impact also.
Nice. Well, thanks so much, Leslie. I think that takes us right up to the end of our session. And I want to give folks a chance to transition over to the next fireside chat with my co-director, Karen Blanc. Leslie, thanks so much. It's been real. Can't wait to hear and see what you all continue to do with Mosaic's work in the city.